tell me what you think. Okay, so again, we got our y equals 2 to the x table, and here's the graph, and we know how to do that. What do we do for the inverse function? Well, there it is. And everybody saw very quickly, because you are familiar with these numbers. You just look at this and say, oh yeah, those are the same numbers, but I reversed the columns, right? Now, if I hadn't been after you for a month to be sure you understand these numbers, you'd still be saying, what? How's that related? You know, you wouldn't recognize it. That's why I'm doing these things, so you will recognize them later, okay? You build on what you recognize. So we immediately see now how to do the graph of an inverse function. I don't really have to give you any more instruction than just that's what you do. Okay? Now we'll do it for the square root of x. We'll see what that's the inverse of. But I think you'll understand that almost instantly. Okay? If not instantly. Well, you can't do it instantly. Okay, so anyhow, we have 1/4 negative 2. Well, here's 1, 1/2, 1/4. We come down to negative 2, so we have a point right here. And then we have 1/2 negative 1. Well, there's 1/2, there's negative 1. And 1, 0, that's a tough one. There it is. Okay? And then we have 2, 1. 2, 1. And now we sketch our curve, and what's going to happen? It's going to look like this. Okay? Now I'll just mention this little bonus. We'll talk about this a little more detail later when we do this symbolically, and I messed it up. This is the y equals x line. Ideally, it would have gone exactly between these two, right? So if I'd have drawn it right, this point here would correspond to this point. These 2 points correspond. These points correspond. And actually, we'd also have the point 4, 2. So let's see. 3 would be here, 4 would be out here. 4, 2 would be like right here. I didn't get that point when I graphed it. There it is. Okay, so this point corresponds to this point. This point corresponds to this point, and this point corresponds to this point. Okay? Now, if you do that with complete accuracy, with equal scales, because my x and y scales are probably a little bit different, okay? But if the x and y scales are equal, then this line will be right halfway between these graphs. Every one of these arrows will be bisected by this line, okay? So this line will hit this arrow halfway from here to here, and every one. And also the angle between the line and the correspondence arrow here will always be a right angle. So kind of worth remembering that for future reference. Right now, though, all you're going to be asked is graph the function and the inverse function, and now here's how you do it, right? Okay? So let's talk about the y equals square root of x. Y equals the square root of x is inverse to y equals x squared, but only sort of. Okay? If you take the y equals x squared graph, and I won't include the negative 1/2 and 1/2 points just to do it quickly, but you would want to include them, right? Okay? Well, you get 4, 1, 0, 1, 4. If you switch you get 4, 1, 0, 1, 4, negative 2, negative 1, 0, 1, 2. Okay? So if you graph these, well, the graph of y equals x squared is going to look like this, as you know. And you'll also have the x equals 1/2 points. Something like this. Okay? If I graph the inverse points, I'm going to have to come out to 4 here. And I'm going to have 4, -2. So let's say I've got to at least go 2 units down here. So 4, -2 is going to be here. 1, -1 is going to be here. 0, 0 is going to be here. 1, 1 is going to be here. And 4, 2 is going to be here. Okay? Now I'm going to give you a little terminology. You don't have to remember it, but it's helpful for understanding what I'm going to tell you. This is the inverse relation. It's not a function. Why is it not a function? Well, we haven't talked about it. But a function has to give you only one value for a given value of x. Well, look here, at x equals 1, this relation gives me 2 values for x, doesn't it? Okay? Well, that's related to the famous vertical line test that everybody's seen, right? Everybody seen the vertical line test? You certainly should have in your prerequisite courses. If a vertical line gives you 2 values, that means there's an x that gives you 2 values, and it's not a function, right? How do we solve that? Well, we've got really 2 branches of this relation. If I do away with one of them, then I've got a function. I've got a branch that goes this way. I've got a branch that goes this way. Okay? We restrict the inverse relation, right? And now we do have a function. Okay? What function do we have? Well, this is y equals square root of x. Right there's your graph of y equals square root of x. So what we say is we're just going to use this part of the inverse relation. So you're only really going to have 3 points to graph, but you see that they're going to follow a curve that's similar to a turned around curve of the y equals x squared function, right? Okay? So bottom line is you just got to know to switch the columns and eliminate the ones with negative values of y, because the square root of a negative, okay, square root isn't going to be negative, right? It's another way of looking at it. So we restrict to these values, meaning we restrict to the values here. Okay? Make sense? Bottom line, you just got to know to just use these 3, and there's your graph. And what you've been doing is not unreasonable, but you've been plugging numbers into a calculator or something and getting 0.7s and 0.71s and 1.4s. Those are not exact.
So basically the bottom 3 will be the y equals the square root of x.
Yeah. Yeah, everything I've circled in, everything I've done in orange or red or whatever that pink, whatever that color is part of your y equals square root of x graph, and it really kind of defines it pretty well, at least within the range of x values from 0 to 4. Okay? We'll talk more about it, but that's how you do it. Okay?